Thanks. And as always with all our meetings, we are recording them so that we can later post them on YouTube and really have the opportunity to share them with a wider audience. We had quite a small sign up for this one and only a few off the list are here. So we're hoping that way the other people who are interested will have a chance to see it. For today, we're going to go over a brief introduction of who we are and what ELK is. And then we're going to go right into Blaine Grinder's speaker presentation, which we're all looking forward to. And then Blaine will lead us through a bit of a discussion. And if anyone has any questions about the material Blaine has presented, then that'll be a place to talk about them there. And as always, we'll do a bit of a conclusion, spin the wheel to see who wins this week's prize, and wrap it up and encourage you to keep following us on social media and sending us emails with anything interesting you find or any other questions you have. Awesome. So to start off, I'd like to acknowledge that Anne and myself are located on the traditional and unceded and ancestral lands of the Tsilhqot'in, and we're honored to be able to work and play here. If you are on a different territory, please feel free to drop it in the chat and let us know whose land you're on. So Eco-Living Kitchen is an initiative associated with co-creating a sustainable BC, which is run through the Fraser Basin Council. So we're a group of youth who are aiming to tackle sustainability issues in the kitchen, specifically looking at different types of waste and how to reduce that waste so that every one of us can have some degree of climate action. I am a student at the University of Northern British Columbia. I'm currently completing my undergraduate degree in forest ecology and management and wildlands conservation and recreation with a minor in soil science. My name's Helga. I'm a non-binary person, so I use all different pronouns. I go by they usually in these spaces, but feel free, I won't be offended if you call me anything else. And I got interested in Eco-Living Kitchen because I really wanted to be able to do something tangible that was related to addressing climate change and sustainability in northern communities.
And my name is Anne. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm also a master's student at the University of Northern British Columbia in natural resources and environmental science. And I joined ELK because I really wanted to meet amazing individuals that cared about the environment and want to do some action on environmental sustainability. And there's also Shauna and Hannah who are part of our team as well. But unfortunately, they couldn't be here today, so they are here in spirit, however. And they are also great people who are made ELK possible. So yeah, and back to you, Helga.
Awesome. And Blaine, we'll let you do your intro before we get into your stuff. You can introduce yourself. We won't do it for you. So the workshop structure is really open. I've used these 3 words to describe the kind of atmosphere we're trying to create: inclusive, collaborative, and kind. So none of us here are professionals in everything, and especially not all the different aspects of sustainability, but we really want to create a space where we can ask the questions about things that we don't know and listen for the answers to the things we need to understand. And so in that way, we all have an opportunity to share our knowledge, but also to listen respectfully when people maybe don't have the same level of knowledge. So just keep those 3 tenets in mind. And then if you are interested and would like to put a little bit about where you are, where you're located, what got you interested in this workshop in the chat, please feel free. But sometimes people like their privacy on Zoom, and that's totally understandable, so no pressure. And with that, I think we'll get right into it. So welcome, Blaine. Feel free to give a little bit of a spiel about yourself before we get into the video, but it's all yours now.
Good, thank you, Helga and Anne. Just want to speak my language a bit, just for my own introduction. So Blaine Grinder, Tsilhqot'in Indigenous Grinder. So it's Walter Grinder, so to Clara Albunas, and yeah, so I just give a quick introduction as short as I can. I live in the Tsilhqot'in Reserve. I'm from the Tsilhqot'in Nation. I am also my mom is also half Tsilhqot'in, and my great grandfather is half the Keshe, and we also have a bloodline with the Newhalt of Belku. So and then I have European ancestry as well. So I guess I'm just like a hybrid of where I'm from here. But I mainly say that I'm Tsilhqot'in for my mother. I carry my mother's lineage. I guess we say that we're Raven, but that's kind of an adopted thing. I could almost say that we are Eagle Clan, and I'm just starting to slowly understand and learn that as well. But yeah, I'm really happy you guys took some time in your afternoon and busy lives to be a part of this. Myself too, I guess for me, I traveled around a lot growing up, but I didn't live on my land. I didn't come back home until about 9 years ago. So when I came back home, I knew very little about, like I knew very little on like how to deal with animals, how to, let's say, gut, how to do a lot. So I've had to I just immerse myself into my culture. And right now I'm semi-fluent in my language. So I started immersing myself in the language. I've also done a lot of traveling. I've been to Guatemala 3 times. I lived in Mexico for about a year. So my Spanish is conversational. I have conversational Spanish, and probably could say conversational in Tsilhqot'in, and I'm opening to learn other Indigenous languages and other languages as well as time goes on. And I just, I liked what Helga said, that I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, but I do know what I know. Me and my uncle for 8 years now have been trapping our collective trap line, and we're basically the only ones that do it. We do a predator control of our area. And I've learned a lot with that. And I've made a lot of mistakes. So I guess I would humbly say that I've obviously learned more from my failures and my successes. But I have a lot of support in my family and my community with the work I do. I do a little YouTube channel with my kids on land-based activities and how to find water, how to start fires, and things like that. And I'll probably continue to do that. And for myself, I really think that we're in a bit of a crisis as Indigenous people of this area right now. For the last 3 years, we've been dealing with a crisis with that we haven't been able to have any salmon, which is a big part of our culture and who we are. And then we also had huge moose declines as well, and then high predator animals and other issues in our area. So we've been really highly impacted in a lot of ways. So I guess food security is a really big issue within the nation, and I truly believe that's maybe even a part of colonization, right? If you think of the history of the people on the prairies, and those people were more, how would you say, they depended on one animal. Our advantage here in the interior is that we've adapted to depend on many different food sources and I think that's one of the reasons that we're harder to colonize. Whereas if we just depended on one animal, we would have been more easier. And then also geography, where we're located is very difficult to get into. And I think, and then the language that I speak is Athabascan, and 2/3 of the nation, almost 1/3 of the nation, or close to half, speak my language, just a different dialect. And then 1/3 of the nation also lives west of the Rockies. So you have to realize that it's because of the mix of the nation, so many nations sharing an area, that we've resisted colonization to as much as we can. But at the same time, we're obviously still living with the impacts of that. And our food is what is really in critical situation where we need to really start thinking and planning ahead for the next generation to have food from the land and sustain the areas of the land. So anyways, I'll save that discussion more hopefully for after the video, but so I'll probably almost, and I had a really good time making the videos, and since I've done I have a bit of a YouTube channel, I have my kids help me with it, so I'm so what I'll do now is just quit talking, and we'll watch the video, and then I can if there's any questions from there, we can continue with that, and then if there's any questions you guys have after that, or anything I said in this part or the video that you guys want to discuss, or we can discuss that as well. So if we can go ahead with the video, and we'll go from there. Hello, Sozi Blaine Grinder, Tsilhqot'in Sinquel Geraldine Grinder, Saba Neville Johnny, then Jan Tsilhqot'in Sada, So my name is Blaine Grinder. I'm from the Tsilhqot'in, also known as Anaheim community. I'm from the Tsilhqot'in Nation. I was asked to do a quick kind of a workshop video on how to make or process dry meat, a bit of a hunting thing. I was originally going to do one on turning an old refrigerator into a smoker, but since I never did that before, and it's actually was going to be a lot of work, I decided to just go back to just how I would do it myself in the bush. And what we're going to be doing today is making a small dry rack for the garden, or for an enclosed space. You could make it in your yard, or if you're out camping for a long time, it's a good thing to make. Let's say you're gonna, or let's say you even get stuck in the bush where you have no choice and you're just eating the food or whatever you need to do in the bush. So to know how to make a simple dry rack for survival mode is and if you end up getting some game in the bush, how to process that and how to make it into dry meat as well. So anyways, that's about it. This part here, we collected some wood with my kids today, and then here we're just scraping off whatever ones have bark on it. Simple rule with a knife is obviously not to cut towards yourself in any knife, or when you're working on anything, not to go towards your hand. Always go away from yourself and also away from anyone else. And when another simple rule with the knife is when you pass the knife to pass it like this, so that no one gets cut. So this is just the first portion. So what we need to do is to get as many long poles as you can, scrape off all the bark, and then the next part we're going to be making our small little dry rack. I just want to show really quickly how easily you can make a little smoker again. Because it's been raining, we went and cut off some branches and put it on here. So basically you make like a teepee. You can put this on here. If you're taking care of the fire in the bush, you probably don't even need this chicken wire, but since I'm kind of in and out of here, that's what we're gonna use for this. So basically 4 sticks put together, tied together like a teepee. All these branches on here, and then cut off and then tied together. Kind of put down the branch down, it kind of catches on really perfectly. This is keep the water off and keep it not so noticeable to animals. And then yeah, just have the fire and the smoke. We're just gonna go collect some more poplar tree, probably, to have a smoldering fire. And when you make the fire too, you want to make sure once the fire is lit to put all the wood on top of your earth, so you have a smoky, continuous smoke with it. So right now it's morning time, so we have time to go and get a few of the materials and put it in there. And right here we have the poplar tree. In our language we call it glossby. I already finished making my little smoking rack at the house. It only took me 5 minutes. The whole point of this little project of mine is just to show that how easy it is. Here, this one looks like we use this tree in particular because it burns smoky, and I got enough material right here. I'm gonna probably cut this up with my saw, which I have right here. And then I'm just gonna cut pieces of it. I'm gonna cut these branches. And I don't like to, usually what a lot of people do is they'll cut a big tree and they'll make a smoky fire. But I think I have enough material here that I probably don't need to take down a live tree. So I'm gonna just keep with that philosophy. If I don't need to take one, I won't. So I got enough dry material here. I'm gonna probably trim these branches off to make it even smokier. And then I'm gonna dice up this glossby right here. So usually we give a little bit we give thanks, give some tobacco, give whatever thank you for this medicine, this tree. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna get to work here, make these pieces, and then and yeah, just bring it to the dry rack we just made. So so next part here is I found a really nice one. It probably just died in the last year or two, so I didn't have to cut a nice live one down. And I was able to cut it down with this tool. This is a really handy one. It's called Expert, I think. So I took care of that fairly quickly. I'm gonna just chop this up as I need it in this dry meat season. And I just wanted to show a few things here while we're in the bush. This glossby is a really good medicine for us. These, if you're in the bush as well, if you get, also known as a poplar tree, is if you get thirsty or have any stomach issues, you can just put that in your mouth and let it sit with you. It'll help stomach issues. And as well, one more last thing I wanted to show too is that right now I got a bit of a headache from some allergies I'm suffering from. And I just remembered that it looks like a bird, woodpecker's been pecking away. So some of the juice came out of here, medicine. So what I'll probably do is cut a tiny piece out of this, because if you get inside of the bark of it, the cambium of it, if you're suffering pain in the bush, it's like an aspirin, I guess, or a Tylenol. And sometimes I'll mix it with whatever I find around too, as long as I know it isn't gonna hurt me. Right here we got juniper, and usually I might grab a few berries. Like one is plenty for that medicine there. And you can even throw in the flour, make a tea, make a little hot tea with it and go from there. But we always give an offering of some sorts, usually tobacco if you have it. But I've also been taught you can give a little piece of your hair, give you a little piece of the hair, bury to the ground, and just say a little prayer before you take anything. And I did that already, but I'll probably do it again for this medicine here. So that's just another part of the process. When you go to do one thing, you ended up doing other things that you need to do, which is why it's great to get on the land and why it's so healing. And I'm gonna definitely have a good workout today, get my workout. Yeah, this is just another part of the video here. This is the actual, when we actually get our meat and get it ready for smoking. So basically what I did was just kind of, the best is if you have it frozen and then you just take it out and let it thaw a little bit. You can get really nice strips out of it. And usually what I do is the first part here, I'll probably just end up cooking that on the stove, and then just kind of get this part of it flat so you can start to get nice little strips here of meat. So so just trying to get a good section here. So that's a nice little piece right there. Little salt. Basically just get it like this. It's gonna come off. Salt it, lightly salt it. Don't need too much salt. And then just put it in there. So, and the same thing with fish, you'll do the same exact thing. If you know how to fillet a fish, basically your fillet is what's gonna go into the smoker. That's a really good thing to do. It's a good way to do it. Us, we're just gonna put it overnight. So the meat would be good for quite a few days, I guess, 3-4 days. And I just salt it right away, so I don't have to try to do that while I'm trying to put it on the smoker. And it's just as simple as that. There's nothing too complicated about this, in my opinion. As long as you made a good dry rack, this part is pretty straightforward, in my opinion. Lightly salt it. I don't like too much salt. Traditionally, even back, if you have no salt, that's okay too. I think one of the most important aspects is of this process is the wind, I guess. Some people even will even put a fan, like an electric fan, on it as well. Even outside, if it's, sometimes they have a covered smokehouse, and they'll throw a big fan on it, and it'll speed up the process of the drying, because it's really the wind that dries it. The salt is just for curing and keeping it from going bad on you, and it keeps, cures the meat, I guess you would say. So I'm getting some nice pieces now. I had to kind of cut it down flat, so like that's a really gorgeous piece. That's how you want to do it. And that's basically it. So this is this part of it with the meat. Like I said, any meat, you could do it with any meat that you have. Let's say you take down a deer, or even like a chicken or anything small too, you could do the same thing. So, but yeah, so that's about it. So I think we're going to give this another day, and this should be fully dry. So about 2 to 3 days to dry meat, and then you might as well go all the way here and do a good job. So that's it. That's as easy as you need to do to make a little smoker at home. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you for watching. Okay. Well, thanks for putting the video together, Anne. And yeah, I'm just going to open the floor up if there's any questions. And if not, I'll just continue on with my thoughts on sustainable hunting and everything. Yeah, what I learned from is that we actually used a little bit too much salt, and it's been a couple of years since I've actually dried meat. So it's what I've been learning with a lot of this stuff is that it's kind of like you're a little rusty at first, and you just get back into it. But I'm looking to go on a big drying campaign with my kids this summer. So yeah, I'll be getting better at that as well. So.
I think it would be great, Blaine, if you could just talk about sustainable hunting a bit more, and then people can sort of think about the video and think about what you said and formulate their questions.
Okay, yeah, that helps me. So yeah, the meat that I use in this is a bison. Actually, my cousin has a bison farm towards Horsefly, I actually don't even hunt moose in our area because of the low numbers. We have quite a bit of whitetail now. Whitetail is it's kind of a new animal. When I first came back home 10 years ago, there was almost no whitetail. Now I see a lot of whitetail, and there's been in some ways it's been a real blessing because the whitetail actually they're very tasty animal that we harvest. They're a little more selective in what they eat, so they taste a little bit. But for me, I don't know. It all tastes good to me. The mule deer is probably the more indigenous deer in our area, and we're slowly starting to get elk back into our area too. They're starting to come back, but I think the biggest issue with that is that we have a lot of impacts from 2017 fires, from the annual harvest rate in our areas never slowing down, like meaning the cut rates. There's a lot of issues with mule deer winter range as well being cut down. And it's just like, and then I guess a bit of the conflict we have even within our nation is that some of our communities and nations are in logging as a business as well. And I think, I'm not criticizing people in that field because everyone needs to make a living and do that as well. But at the same time, I think as long as our values are still attached to those areas and we're still able to harvest animals, even though they may, in some cases, we do need to harvest the wood in areas in order for some of the animals to come back. So it's just, I think a lot of it is just finding that balance. But the biggest missing link I see, and I've been hearing over and over because I sit on like the wildlife committee. I've been on that since 2008 with my nation. We meet with government officials and scientists once a month. And I just, I do my best just to listen, but I do speak up when I need to. But is that we're having a massive habitat loss of their animals. And I would say we just went through another massive one this year. I usually indicate that by how many predators I get in my trapping, and we got a lot this year. So what that tells me is that we're having habitat loss for all our animals right now, and we're having influx of some animals getting high in their population. Another animal that's definitely impacting our wild game is the wild horses. And that's a really controversial one, actually, because there's a lot of people that are for the wild horses and they want us not to do anything with the wild horses. But at the same time, and then there's issues with the wolves. They just did over 100 wolf cull in the north of the Itchas, and that's a northern part of our area. And to some degree I agree with that, and to some and other ways I totally disagreed with that method. And but whatever is done is done now. But at the same time, the missing link, I really believe, and it's an issue not just with Indigenous people, even with ranchers, is that there are people not back in the day. If there was a horse problem, there used to be people, even ranchers, Indigenous people, other people on the land that would take care of that. And same with if there was nuisance animals like beavers taking roads or different stuff, there was people back in or the predators got out of, and the missing link is really our people being on the land with those values and being on the land and seeing and being able to read, I don't know, the environment so that we can take care of that collectively. And now with the way things are going, I feel like we and even us as Indigenous people are getting more pushed away from the land, and we're getting more pushed away from our values to the land, and not even knowing what even a lot of our people don't even know what the laws are and what that even means now too. So, and I think and looking at but the interesting thing about that is that you know what I mean, we go through our own protocols, and I guess I could tell a bit of a story is that since I was older, when I got back into my culture, I lived in Fort Nelson and worked for the nation up there. in their lands department, mostly working with consultation with trappers from the mine and gas companies up there. But I got my first moose up there with somebody from the nation up there. And then after that, we brought the moose back to the community. We gave it all away. We gave all the meat away. And that's a protocol that we have, is that your first animal you harvest, you give it away. And I think that's a really good way for bringing our hunters and people back into that it isn't about just taking, it's about giving. And even though, you know, you can look at the work that we do as harvesting and taking animals out, which we do, and we still do pay for that karma in different ways, but at the same time, as long as we're doing our best job to protect the environmental as a whole, I think that gives us a kind of a back and forth with the animals. And what I find too is that sometimes when we take out certain animals, we end up taking some other animals to help with that population. And even though, like, let's say people are all against trapping and everything like that, is that if we don't control the populations, some of those populations will starve to death. They'll have a miserable existence, even worse than us harvesting that way. But I think the most important thing is, where is the line? Where is it too much for us to take, or when should we cut back and say, okay, we can't take anymore? And I truly believe, like, a lot of the government people and even our own people, we need to start doing the research in order to find that line between what is too much and where can we be a part of that balance. But it's really challenging because the impacts are so big, so large in different ways, and in many ways it's like, yeah. So for us, but the good thing about our nation is that we're still very attached to the land. Our language is still very attached to the land. Our values are still very attached to the land. When I came back home, we were a big part of my kids were just born. We were a big part of fighting for Fish Lake in Tsilhqot'in, where they wanted to basically get rid of the lake and go for the goal there. But our nation was very strong in coming together and taking over that process and protecting that area. And it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life, and you know, full of fish. So we as a nation and nations, I believe, as long as we're on the same page, can stop anything. But right now, I kind of feel like we're at a cross point where we need to start creating more things. We need to start building the values to the next generation, and not only for Indigenous people, for all people. Because what happens when you know the Indigenous laws of an area or of a place, once you know it, then you are bound by those laws. And I think it's a really interesting concept for people to understand. Then you become responsible. But what I find now is that there's a lot of ignorance on how people see the land, and just harvesting just for money, just for profit, and feeling entitled in that process. But then at the same time, we can only get away with our ignorance for so long, and eventually it'll catch up to all of us, in my opinion, if we believe in karma and in our how we live our lives and how we take. And as human beings, I think we're very destructive in just even driving around, just living our life, that a lot of other species and animals even just die because of your existence. And it's like, and then for me, I think going back to our value systems, how do we give back? How do we give back to, or how do we put our energy and work into something we may never see, something that the next generation may benefit from? And for me, I think that's where a lot more people are starting to go towards. I think Indigenous people, as they get more access to areas and lands and control and management, I believe that as long as they haven't lost their values to those areas, will make better decisions on how things should be managed and looked at, and not to just look at the money first, because that economic model is obviously doesn't work. You know, it may work for a few individuals who benefit from that, but it doesn't help us collectively as nations, especially. And I think so for me, I know that this is a lot of information, but at the same time, I think for me, I don't hunt the moose in my area. I don't go after the salmon because I know their numbers are low, and we need to make sure that if those animals ever come back in big populations, that we manage them properly, and that the next generation will take care of them even better than we can. And it's about passing on what we know, and at the same time finding ways that we can have victories, because sometimes it's just overwhelming. Even thinking about climate change is like, where do we even start? So my suggestion or advice for people is to just find what you're interested in, what you're passionate in, and just do that. And then and if it continues to build, you have a career with it, then it can build into that. And you know, not everyone's just meant to be in office. There's many people are meant to be on the land, and that I think now there's more opportunities to be a part of that. So anyways, I want to quit talking and see if there was any questions or
I was going to interrupt you, but you were on such a good roll. I didn't want to cut you off. So there are two questions in the chat, and I know I have some, and I'm sure once we get rolling, other people also have some. The first one comes from Dawn, and she says, I volunteer with an avian wildlife rehabilitation organization, and we try to educate people on the benefits of non-lead ammunition for animals and humans. Do you use any ammunition for hunting?
Me? Yeah, I do. But I usually usually we always find it, I guess. So yeah, we do. I do use other stuff as well, and we do use metal traps, and I'm starting to slowly learn our more traditional ways of doing that, and I'm just getting into like more bow hunting, and I'm actually being a part of the Tsilhqot'in War movie that we're creating. So we're looking at going back to how we hunted, how we made our weapons for harvesting animals. So, but yeah, I do have my PAL, and yeah, so I do use firearms. It is.
Now, your point about the bow leads perfectly into the next question. Stephanie says, my partner has become interested in land-based archery caught sustainable hunting. He's been really lucky to find a community of ethical hunters to learn from because there's no intergenerational knowledge from his family. What recommendations do you have for folks who want to learn but may not have any obvious mentors to reach out to? I think this is a fantastic question from Stephanie. Yeah,
that is a good question. Well, to be honest with you, it might sound a bit cliche-ish, but anytime I've actually wanted to learn something, my teacher appeared. and I find that anytime you're interested in things like that, to do your own research, and you may have to do some work or pay or take some sacrifice some of your time to go somewhere to learn it. But with everything going online and everything and our ability to connect with anybody in the world, I think I don't think there's any obstacles really. Now that the COVID restrictions are being lifted, that, you know, even for myself, I do jiu-jitsu and I want to continue that training. And then really, if I can go to a city once a month, every couple of months, pay some money with somebody at a high level to learn some stuff. And I think really, if you know, investing in yourself and learning those things, I think is great. You know, and for me, I see things as I don't care who teaches me what. So it could be somebody younger than me. It could be somebody from a whole different country. You know, I've learned so much from trappers doing trapping course in our community. And even though many of them, or almost all of them, are most of my mentors there, I do have Indigenous mentors. But many of them have like 55, 60 years experience trapping, dealing with animals, preparing them. And it was like, anyone that did anything for 55 years is going to teach you something. And many people in those fields too are just open to teaching, and they also believe in that they shouldn't be taking too much. They want to sustain their areas. But similar to us right now, interesting with the trappers is that they don't really have a voice, and they actually need to start aligning with us as Indigenous people and other groups to give them a voice, because in my opinion, all the people who are on the land the most become are like biologists or scientists, and if they don't have a voice, and if they're into the equation or to an issue they may have in their areas, and the people on the land are the first one to see that there's an issue. For example, back in the day, we knew that our moose populations were down, but since our voice or that our collection of data wasn't recognized by, I guess, Western science, they brought in some biologists who did some work and told the government, and the government people told us exactly what we told them 8 years ago. So it's like, how do we get the people who are heavy land users, knowledge users, regardless if they're Indigenous or not, to get their voice into the equation? And I know I kind of veered off a little bit from the question, but I guess, but at the same time, I'm like, there are so many different people that you can connect to, and I think, I think, like I said, if every time I wanted to learn something, my teacher appeared, and I just say, just continue on that road, and who knows where it's going to bring you.
All right, well, there seems to be a slowing of questions in the chat, and it doesn't look like anyone has their hand up. So I will ask my question then. So for those of us who like going out on the land, whether we hunt or we fish, or, you know, I'm plant-based, but I still harvest a lot of berries and sometimes medicines from the land, the ones that I know or have been taught. And so I'm wondering, what are a couple basic things or rules that we should always keep in mind when we're out there? I know you've talked about laws and protocol, and I mean, I don't know if you want to share those with us, or, you know, not, sure. But you know, what are some things that we should always, like, you know, your top 5 things to always keep in mind when you're on the land and interacting with the land in that way that requires you to take, or not? I mean, I think there may be things that we should keep in mind even when we're not taking, right? Like if you're hiking or canoeing, what should land users be thinking about?
I think the thing is you know, to only take what you need, right? The land will replenish itself, and you know, even my kids, even when we were making the tit, in my language we call the smoker a tit. You know, we gave something for everything that we took, and even giving a piece of your hair too is something. If you don't have anything, you give a piece of your hair and you pray, you're giving a piece of yourself and taking something, and it's as simple as that. And that you also, if you're a hunter, always pray for clean kills, right? Really quick. And many people believe, you know, the more generous you are with your medicines or your foods, you will have better luck. So luck has a big part to do with a lot of our understanding and philosophy. And if someone has good luck, they're usually, not always, but they're usually very generous people too. So, and I find the more generous I am with my harvest stuff, I always get animals. And I think that's one thing to think about. And if you know the medicine, you go out there not to probably only take at the most 5% of a bush or a medicine and leave the rest. And even if you're finding good berry patches and stuff, like think about the birds, think about the other animals that use this food to actually live, whereas we're just using it. We just take what you need and then leave the rest for nature. And it's just that simple understanding of things. And when you take something, you better leave something, even if it's just a prayer, even if it's just acknowledging. And I think that's where a lot of people, and as my great uncle said to me, and I can share a few things on that, is if you don't believe in the medicine, it doesn't work for you. And it's the same with the nature. If you don't believe in the nature, you don't believe that this spirit has its own, you don't respect it, it's not going to respect you, it's not going to give you what you're looking for. And then my other uncle said this to me recently, and he said, if you don't feel good, you're not feeling good in your life, or things are feeling sick, go to the land. Go to the land, and the land will heal you. That's how powerful the land is. So, and I don't think it matters who you are. And then sometimes you feel like, oh, you don't have the energy to do it. But once you get on the land is so energized that it can heal you. Another example of that, I had kind of like ulcers many years ago, and my great aunt would say that if you want to get rid of something, just go to the river every day. Go and sit in the river and pray at the river. And I did that for a whole summer, and whatever was bothering me just came right out of my body. So for me, listening to my elders, respecting their protocols, and has really helped guide me. And I still got lots of work. I'm not perfect by no means, but I'll tell you this much, is like, if it wasn't for the land, in a lot of ways, I don't know where I'd be right now in my life. So I just tell people that we should be grateful that we have clean water. We should be grateful that we have an area that we can still use and find medicine. So anyways, was there another question here?
Yeah, there are a couple things popping up in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for that answer. So I've got one from Anne, actually, in the chat. And she says, because of the loss of habitat you mentioned, there's a lot of conflict between farmers and wildlife. Farmers shoot down animals all the time because they are a nuisance to their farms. Is there a solution to this?
I think there could be some solutions to that. I think some of the ranches are connecting with the young hunters. My great uncle used to phone them and say that he wants to hunt in the area, and they were like, yeah, go ahead. So I think it's just communication, right? Just having respect for the area that they're taking care of. And for me, I guess it gets challenging because I see the bigger picture of colonization, and we have some ranches, we have some places where one rancher owns more land than all our people in our nation, even collectively, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I guess the issue is the distribution of wealth and distribution of the land. And then if that individual has no values to the land whatsoever, you see the results in how things are happening. And you may even see the results in their own health, their own spiritual health as well. You know what I mean? Whether they realize it or not. But I think stepping away from that, saying, yeah, if there's ways for us to work together with other people and it aligns with our values, and I think the key there is the communication, to communicate from both sides, that we, like, for example, the predator issues, we are willing to work with other people on that issue, but if they're not coming to us with respect, we don't want to work with them. And it's just as simple as that.
And then there's not a question, but just an interesting note from Stephanie in the chat. She says, on the topic of clean kills, I've learned if you don't think you can do it, you don't take the shot.
Yeah.
Which I think is a...
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Well, and I hear other philosophies, like, if you know what I mean? If you're down to, like, you really need the meat and you really need to feed your family, like you need to take a shot sometimes. So I think the biggest part of that is using the right tool for the right situation, right? Like you don't want to be using a big gun on a small animal, but you also don't want to be using such a small gun on a bigger animal. And then and practicing and make sure you know how to sight in your weapons and your tools, and knowing what to do as soon as you get something. And a lot of that will come with preparation. Like right now I feel really happy that I have my little smoker. I'm going to make it bigger, but then it's better to get prepared and get all that stuff prepared. And then when you get something, your transition into if you're wanting to make dry meat is all there. So it's preparation is a big part of it. Like I've shot only 2 moose in my lands from the whole time I've been home, and I had to do a lot of prep work in order to get it. It wasn't, some people get lucky and they just see something and yeah, good for them. But I think for you to fully appreciate things, you're gonna have to put in your time and effort into things. And and absolutely really think if the animal is in a place where you might not be able to take it out, or you're not too sure if it may have little ones, there's so many factors. We generally look at just taking the males and doing it in season, and I would say that most people follow those protocols and values. But of course, just like every other community, there are people who don't respect those values on all sides, and I think that can become a real big issue as well, right? So I think but yeah, I think putting your intention out there of whatever you're wanting to get, and even going looking for medicine is kind of like hunting as well, right? And then you connect with that spirit in that way, and if it allows you to do it, because people say when you hunt too, if you're aligned with that spirit, you're aligned with yourself, that animal will just sit there and look at you. and that spirit is just giving itself to you. And then sometimes people don't take that shot. And then the creator, if you can think of it, that the creator was like, here, I just gave you a gift, but you didn't take it. So you prayed for this and I gave it to you and you didn't take it. So there's that other aspect of it as well. And the other aspect is like, you're not too sure, but you took, just out of impulse. So it's, I don't know. I think a lot of it is just knowing yourself, knowing what you're capable of doing, knowing what you want. And if you're on the land on a survival mode, it's you're gonna and I was discussing this earlier with Anne and Helga, is that if you actually really want to live on the land, or you get in a position where you do, you may have to live on what is given to you rather than you trying to choose what you want. And then I think that's another thing I've learned a lot, is that I don't want to say, oh, I'm going to get this animal and this animal. I just get presented things all the time. And since I'm one of the only ones that know how to prepare pelts, I get gifts all the time. And some gifts I have to be like, I'm not in the right mind space to take care of a big thing like this. So for me, what I'm having to learn lately is to say no to things. Say, look, I'm probably going to make too many mistakes or ruin this, whatever this is being given to me. So it's a lot of it is getting to know yourself and knowing what you're capable of doing or what you're able to do. So I think I know that's kind of a long answer to your question, but
No, I think that was all relevant to the topic. That was good. Perfect. And there's another question from Anne in the chat. Anne, do you want to read it out?
Yes, sure. Thanks, Blaine, for answering this question. So I have another question. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on how you can use the whole animal. So say if you hunt a deer or you hunt a moose, how do you use all parts of the animal, so the antlers and even the intestines and all those parts that people don't really eat, so as not to waste it?
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking at doing a project, maybe even in the fall, and is looking at even just taking down, a bison, and how we harvest it, how we look at using every aspect of that animal that we can. And yeah, and I think it takes a bit of a process. I've never personally taken the intestines of it, and basically once you get it, you go and you clean it out and you deal with it that way. But that's something that even for myself, I'm wanting to learn. So that's one thing you do. And another thing is, and I have it on my YouTube videos, is a bit how to dehair and get the flesh off, and salt whatever, if you want to dehair it or if you want to leave the hair on, to use the skin, since the skin is the largest organ of all animals. And if you're looking at that as a survival, or even just you're using as much as you can, is a really I find fleshing, if you don't mind fleshing, I wouldn't say fleshing is an enjoyable job, but it is kind of like a meditation to some degree. So it's just you know, for me, to be honest with you, a lot of my teacher was just looking on YouTube and getting me on the board and going through my own trial and error of how to do things. And then just recently, I just had a mentor, an older Indigenous man from the Tsilhqot'in Nation, help me. And I kind of feel like my level was here, and he brought me up to another level with his how meticulous he was in the, and that he just took his time. And that's another thing, that when you're doing traditional things, or you're doing even anything culturally or anything on the land, it's just to be patient and to do your first steps right. The first steps you do and all that will make a difference how everything ends up in the end. And if you're looking at furs, for example, the better job you do at the beginning will show in the end. And it's really true that someone that doesn't put their time in the front end of something will end up with not such a good thing, and will ruin a nice pelt. Whereas somebody who knows what they're doing will make like a pelt that's not so high grade look decent. So it's just it's a skill. It's an old skill. And the way I teach people too is that all people, I don't care where they're from, is that, especially when we're doing like pelt preparation, is that I'm actually not teaching you anything. You already have it in your DNA. It doesn't matter who you are. You're Indigenous somewhere. You have those skills in you. You know how to skin an animal. You know how to flesh. You know how to do all that stuff. It's all intact in our memories. And I think us being Indigenous here is just more to the surface. We understand that more. And I find when I teach that way, their mind is open, and they're able to and then they get the confidence that they know what they're doing because they do. But yeah, continue on the question of it. It's like you can use everything. The brains of any animal usually are enzymes for helping the tanning process. And then I do my best not to waste anything, but sometimes I just, even if I take all the organs that I want, or usually I take them all, and then whatever the stomach and stuff, I usually just leave it, because nature will eat that as well. Nature will take care of everything. And even when we trap with animals and stuff, we put the animals back to the land. And I'm actually really impressed how fast nature will take care of even really big stuff. Nature can take care of something big in a week. We realize how efficient nature is, just the way it is. It has its own system that if you don't live that, or you don't see it, you just don't realize it. But nothing gets wasted in the bush, basically. And even though and the truth is, as you learn, you're going to make a lot of mistakes at first, and you have to just be willing to accept that you're going to have a lot of failures before you get successes. And I think that's the part that makes it very challenging for people to get back on the land. But once you get past that, it gets easier, and the more you learn it, you can learn how to do other things in the same field. So it's, I don't know, for me, it's been an amazing process in my own culture, and especially since when I came back home, I didn't really know how to do that much. But I think if you're willing to immerse yourself into anything, you're going to learn, right? So.
Thanks, Blaine. And I think Helga has a link.
Yeah, before I share the link, I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more. I know you mentioned you take the organs that you want. And I know that sort of North American settler society has a real sort of fear of eating organ meat, but I know my mom grew up, she's from an Austrian family who came to Canada, and she grew up eating organ meat all the time. So
Yeah.
which organs do you take and how do you use them?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I've heard stories of people who've had like liver damage from alcoholism in our community, and what people suggested them was to hunt a deer or even a moose, a real healthy one, and to eat the frozen liver, and that healed their liver. You know what I mean? So and then and as long as you believe in that and you follow that understanding, it can help you that way. And yeah, as long as the animals, you will know right away once you take the animal, you'll know if that animal is healthy. You'll just look at it and everything's clean, all the organs look nice, everything looks good. You know that's a clean animal, a very clean animal. And then if there's something going on with that animal, as you work on any animal, like basically I have a bit of understanding of like forensics or autopsy. Is like sometimes what you don't see on the surface is once you start taking things apart, you start to see, oh, they had a rough life, or they had a rough winter. There's just, you just learn so much just from taking things apart, and it might sound kind of harsh, but then at the same time, I know where my meat's coming from. You know, the bison that I harvest, I got 2 this year. I know where it came from. I harvested it. I was there through the whole process. I know where my foods came from. I do that so that I don't have to go out and get a moose when maybe I should just leave it alone. So I think, yeah. But I think that's just a personal preference for people with the organs, and you know, and some indigenous nations right away when let's say they harvest a deer, would take the brain out and take the liver and boil that slowly. You know, build a hole, get ash after they fleshed the animal. They would get ash and make a hole and put it in water and process the rest of the meat. They would use all the tools of the bones, and they would probably have other tools. They could make sinew for that. So the animals, if you're willing to do the work, the whole nature will give you everything you need to survive out there. But you got to be willing to sacrifice yourself in making those things happen. And what's really great about living on the land in that way is that you're just living in the moment. And I think that's kind of what's missing in a lot of our society, is that we are not living in the moment. We're always, we'll do this thing later, or thinking about the past. Whereas once you're on the land, you know, there was a reason why our people never had mental health issues. They didn't have lots of the diseases. They weren't preoccupied, and you know, as they say, stress is the #1 killer. And you realize it's because they were constantly going after something. They were constantly getting medicine. They were constantly just having to live in the moment. And I think, to be honest with you, that's a lot of our solutions, not even just for Indigenous people, but all people, to go back to the land. And if you learn the laws of those areas and you follow those protocols sincerely, I think that what you're going to get is, you know, you're going to get something, you're going to find more meaning even to your own life. and understanding how important just the moment is. And if the creator gifts you with medicine or with animals, that you should be absolutely grateful, and that, you know, just bringing back the appreciation of whatever you've been given. So.
Well, I've just put out a last call for questions in the chat, but I think what you just said there was a pretty fantastic sort of start to a conclusion. But while people are typing up their questions, or we're waiting for the last few questions to come in, I'll just invite you to, you know, is there anything you want to say sort of in conclusion to wrap everything up? We've touched a lot of bases today, so just I want to give you that space to tie it all together. But feel free to leave it open too. That's totally fine.
Well, I'll just see if there's any questions, if there's anyone has any questions first.
I have one last question for you, Blaine. So in the gardening workshop, the gardening speaker was saying that after he grew his own vegetables, he couldn't go back to eating commercial vegetables. So I was wondering if you could maybe comment on just hunting meat and how the meat is so different than what is commercially available. Because I had a friend who said that there was an animal who ate berries and he hunted and the meat was actually purple. And so he can actually see what the animal ate and everything, and how it tasted is different. So could you maybe comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? I do at times eat like beef and chicken, and usually it's because I'm on the road or I didn't prepare to bring food, or so, and to be honest, I just like, I don't disrespect or you know, if that's what you can afford and that's the situation you're in, and that's just the food you eat. But I think, you know, even though you might be eating processed food, you should still pray for your food. You know, you should still appreciate that all the elements that came to be gave you that sustenance to survive and give you your energy. But there is a huge difference. My daughter right now will not eat anything processed. She'll only eat fish or the bison. So, and she just learned that on her own. And so she herself doesn't feel good eating the other stuff. And that's, so I think it's really, and then you got to think where, like, what is the condition of the animals? And how much respect are those animals going through before it gets to you? You know what I mean? It's also a big thing. Whereas, you know, we take wild game, and, you know, like I said, there's some communities that don't go after moose at all, you know, so they're respecting it in that way. But I think what's important is that, you know, you have an appreciation of, first of all, whatever you're getting, but at the same time, I think eating something that was off the land, that was free, and you did it in the right way, and it was a clean kill, and then you ate that food, and it gave you energy, and even the food, even they say that eating your indigenous foods will impact your dreams and your own tribal or older memories, right? And it's true, right? And I think it's not just food, there's more to it than that. And then you got to think of the salmon is the same species of animals that our ancestors ate for thousands and thousands of years. So in a sense, you're sharing something from that aspect. And then for us with the mule deer, it's like we would get more of that. And then I'm just slowly introducing like muskrats and other foods with my kids, which they love to eat. And it's like, even that will impact you in different, you will, like, for example, a muskrat just eats grass all the time. It's a vegetarian. It's like a very clean, lean animal. And I don't mind the taste of it. And you got to think, if you're living in a bush, that's what you need to eat in order to survive out there. Like that's your menu. And if you learn to adapt to it, and you'll probably be a lot healthier person. And, but the advantage and disadvantage Indigenous people have is that Indigenous people are able to absorb high proteins, and especially if you dry the meat, the enzymes are still attached in the meat. That's why drying meat is probably the best way to eat meat. And then it'll help through your digestion, your brain, and everything else. And I think, but the disadvantage we have is many of us can't process milk and wheat and have those other issues. But I've heard of elders who live on a lake, and because they have those enzymes, they just live on fish. They just live on that one animal, and they sustain themselves. And many of them grow, they look good when they're older, and they're really healthy. So I'm just reading the comments here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sydney from Australia and non-Indigenous. However, I think that Blaine's comments and perspective apply to Indigenous people worldwide. Thank you. Thank you for joining us from Sydney. Joan Nell, thank you, Blaine. I think we're all in our hearts know that with sustainability comes strong connections with the community and that sharing of knowledge. Thank you again for reminding us that we shouldn't be doing this one. Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, even me as an Indigenous person working on my own decolonization. And basically how I'm doing that is doing the exact what they wanted to do, what they wanted to take away. They wanted to take away my language and our land. So how I combat it is I speak the language and I get back on the land. And I think, but the issue with that, I think, as Indigenous people is that we can't be decolonizing in a vacuum. Everybody else who live on this land is responsible for this land too. And they need to start decolonizing as well. And I think that process is already happening. And everybody's at different angles with it. And usually everyone's process of decolonizing whoever you are is usually first is shame, and then it's anger. And then sometimes that cycle repeats itself over and over. But then us as Indigenous people and other people, I guess you could say Canadian people, we all need to decolonize because there are some aspects of the system that work, but we need to start working on aspects that don't work. And when it comes back to the land, we need to start making decisions, treating the land like it's its own entity, like it has rights, and we have to respect that in that way. And I think I have more faith in the next generation in doing that, and future leaders and future professionals in whatever field they get into, to that is happening. But at the same time, our impacts are happening so fast that it's just sometimes hard to react. So so that's my suggestion, and is to just you know, pick your battles, find things that you can have success in, and then maybe, and if you're really interested, there'd be other parts that may really frustrate you, or you don't know where to start. So I think for me, my advice for people is that we are all responsible to this area, whatever area we're at, and take time to learn from the Indigenous people from whatever area that you live in. And if you actually start to understand the laws and their philosophy, I think it'll help you in making those connections with the Indigenous people. And at the same time, once the Indigenous people are empowered, they're going to make better decisions collectively as well. And I think it's just, again, it's just a communication piece, and it's just, you know, and it's us being responsible for our actions, and us being responsible for areas and water. So it's I don't know. At the same time, I'm excited about everything, and I think you know, I'm really glad I was part of the Fraser Basin and the youth group. I think it before then I was a little pessimistic, I guess, to some degree, that change wasn't happening. But I'm very hopeful, and I'm really glad to see more youth interested in Indigenous issues and actually you know, being part of the solution. So.
Well, I think that finding hope through community is a great sort of note to start winding down on, because we have just a couple of concluding things to go through with Anne. But if there's nothing else you want to top off with, then I'd just like to say thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge and for sharing all that you have with us. And I know there's definitely a couple things I'm going to be thinking about in my mind when I go out on the land next time, which will probably be fairly soon. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank all of you. So just channel you.
Thank you so much, Blaine. Everybody give a little virtual applause for that amazing presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, Blaine. We're really lucky to have you here to share with us about your knowledge of the land. And absolutely, I think we all have a responsibility toward the land. And yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I'm just going to share my screen and we're just going to conclude. So these are just a few of the links here. So Blaine has a YouTube channel, as he mentioned, and there's also other videos that you can watch that are very connected to what he does on the land as well. So there's not only this video that he shows how to dry meat and other things. So if you're interested, please check out the channel. There's a link there and we will provide this link as well later on when we email you the recording and everything. And then there's also the link that Helga provided as well in the chat about using organ meat. So it's there if you want to check it out. And finally, as with all our workshops, we have a prize for whoever attends today. So the prize today is local dry jerky and local barbecue sauce. And so I'm just going to spin the wheel here. I'm just going to make sure I have everybody I'm supposed to. Okay. So drum roll, and we're going to see who's going to win this prize. Oh, Susan, you're in Sydney, Australia, right?
Oh no! I think we should have disclaimed at the start that it's
yeah, sorry,
it's limited to people in BC.
Yeah, this is only for people in BC because we cannot deliver outside of BC, unfortunately. So I'm so sorry, Susan, but even though you're a winner in our hearts, we can't give you the prize. Sorry. So I'm just going to spin again, if that's okay. Oh, Roman, congratulations. You won the prize. Are you in BC? Okay. Just pop in the chat if you're from BC or not. I think you are.
If that's Roman Baca, then yeah.
Okay.
I delivered to his home before.
Great. Awesome. All right. So congratulations, Roman. You won the prize and we will contact you later on when we're going to deliver it. Awesome. So last but not least, if you guys have any questions or want to email us about anything, please feel free to contact us through our email address there and also follow us on social media. We do have, is it 2 more workshops, right, Helga?
Yep,
2 more workshops.
2 more.
Awesome.
Yeah, so next week we'll be doing a bit of a fermentation and canning workshop with Lindsay Sackett. And then the week following that, we're going to be having sort of a wrap-up event where we use our scraps to cook a meal together in a socially distanced fashion. So we'll be on Zoom, but we're hoping that everyone can join us and kind of collaborate to talk about how they're using their scraps to make different kinds of things. And then lastly, we will be sending out a short survey to all the participants. It's really quite quick, but we'd really appreciate it if you could let us know what you liked about this workshop or what we could improve for the future. And that really helps us just sort of give the people what they want and improve our own skills in delivery. But that's all we've got. So stay in touch on social media, and thanks again to Blaine, and thank you all for attending. This was a fantastic afternoon.
Yep.